everyone, welcome to a new video and a new week here in the Midwest where it's very sunny and summer continues to roll on. If you are a new viewer here, I just want to say hi and thank you so much for giving my channel a chance. It would mean the absolute world to me if you subscribed and joined a little community that I'm building here on my channel. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you as well for continuing to support me and support the growth of my small channel. So I had a very productive week last week and I have a lot of updates to share with you guys, both in terms of garden updates and just personal kind of funny stories, things that have occurred over the past few days. I'll start off with what I would consider to be the most funny and shocking thing, which was that we ended up finding a juvenile snake in our basement. Specifically, my husband was the unlucky one to encounter it first. And I should preface this whole story by saying I am one of those kind of, let's say, uncommon people that actually like snakes. I don't have anything against them. In fact, I think that in some cases they're really quite cute. And when I was a teenager, I took a snake handling course and I don't really mind them that much. However, I do want to stress that my enjoyment of snakes only extends to non-venomous snakes. I obviously get a little bit uncomfortable or freaked out when the snake could be venomous. And I think I mentioned in a previous video, I used to live in California and I did come across many rattlesnakes during my time living there, going on hikes. They tend to like to gather around bodies of water. And as you can imagine, I did not want to be anywhere near close to them, especially with my dog Maple that I would bring on my hikes with me at the time. So back to the story, my husband was walking down into our basement and just below the very last step was the snake. And he called me down and we thought at first that it was just a garter snake because we do get a lot of those here on the property and they are harmless snakes. But my husband went to put a small plastic bin over it to try to contain it and trap it so that we could release it. And when he did that, the snake launched, like attacked the inside of the plastic bin, and we heard that classic vibration rattle coming from the tail. And so we immediately freaked out that this could be a rattlesnake. And so I looked closer at the patterning and it convincingly looked a lot like a rattlesnake. And with the awareness that this could be a venomous snake, I think it goes without saying that we no longer felt comfortable handling the snake ourselves and we wanted to seek professional action. So I did look online for some resources and we called a couple of places. However, this was on a Sunday. And so unfortunately, most of these places were closed, or they kind of directed us to like an AI powered answering service where we had to leave our name and our number and we're told that we would be called back, but no one called us back immediately. So we were trying to figure out what our next step should be. And in the meantime, we had the snake safely contained and we decided to do some Googling, of course, and to look up some images. And what we came upon was that apparently there is another type of snake called a rat snake, which kind of looks quite similar in appearance to a rattlesnake. And cleverly, they have a defense mechanism against predators, which clearly worked very well on us, where they do create that vibrating noise with their tail, which can mimic that classic rattlesnake sound. So I will say hats off to that little guy. He absolutely fooled us. So after our research, we were about 90% sure that this was in fact a rat snake, just kind of masquerading as a tough little guy versus a rattlesnake. And we took a photo of the tail and we did confirm that there wasn't that rattle on the tail. And so my husband very bravely then transferred it to a sealable bucket and we released it. We have some little unsealed cracks in areas in our basement. So I think we need to work on sealing those up because heaven forbid it was truly a rattlesnake. Our dogs run down there all the time and so do we. And of course they tend to run down ahead of us and we don't think anything of it. And we're grateful that one, it wasn't a rattlesnake, but two, if it would have been that our dogs didn't run down first like they typically do. I just wanted to tell you guys about that crazy experience this weekend. So I'm grateful that it wasn't truly a rattlesnake, and I think we came away with learning some new information about the snakes that we have on our property. Now, I do have another wildlife story to share with you guys. I had placed my potting table that lives in my greenhouse outside for several days, just to sort of have as a project space and to kind of see what it would be like to keep it out there in the summer. And I decided after those few days to move it back into the greenhouse. And so we went to disassemble it and remove the drawers that are in it. And as I took out the drawer on my end and my husband was taking out the drawer on his side, I saw that my side had a bird's nest about this big all the way in the very back corner of the drawer. And I was shocked, very shocked. I did not obviously expect this would happen over the span of a couple of days. There were no babies or eggs or anything like that in there. And it did look like the nest was still in progress. So it wasn't a fully finished nest. That was just a very interesting find this week, and also another lesson for me that if I'm going to put things like that outside, that can occur. I would love to know from you guys, what is the most unique, strange, unconventional spot that you have seen a bird's nest in? Just an interesting topic of conversation I've never considered or thought about before. Okay, so moving on from the wildlife stories, in my last video, I shared with you guys a pastry that I had purchased from a local bakery and I was trying for the first time. It was a cherry croissant, and I said I would give you guys some feedback on whether I liked it and what I thought of it, and shocker, I thought it was delicious. It was truly excellent and very, very good. It had this sort of cream cheese based frosting. I love a pastry that's not overly sweet and has a little bit of that savory component to kind of cut or balance any other sweet elements in it, and that's exactly what this one did. And that paired with sort of the tart cherries that were on top was delicious, and that sort of buttery, flaky then croissant underneath, all those flavors combined, the layering of those flavors was superb. So I love that pastry, and I will be back in that store to get it again. And I've already been thinking about going back, and other things I want to try. I want to try that almond croissant as well that my husband picked up. And when I do, I will definitely share it with you guys. Okay, now in terms of the garden, there have been several developments over the past couple of days that I am very proud to share. I have been mentioning now for I don't even know how many videos back that I wanted to make sort of a TP-like structure for climbing beans or something of that nature, and that I had seen that idea from the Purposeful You Instagram account, but I just hadn't gotten around to doing it. And I also took inspiration from my trip to Scotland. The Airbnb that we stayed at, she had a gorgeous garden, and she had kind of a teepee-like structure from some sort of either bamboo canes or something similar that she was using for sweet peas. And so this weekend I hauled a step ladder out there. I grabbed all the materials I needed, grabbed the bamboo canes from my greenhouse that had been sitting there for a while, some twine and wire, and I went ahead and gave it a shot, and it was a success. I had a bit of a learning curve with understanding how I could secure the canes together, and I'll show you what I mean in a little bit when we go outside. I'll take you to the back and show you the structure. It's just, I'm actually looking at it right now. I want to say it's like 2 sets of 4 bamboo canes. And then I brought those canes together and then have one running on the very top, and then secured them all with wire, and then ran string across to form kind of a trellis. So it's very simplistic. I did go through quite a bit of trial and error trying to secure those canes together with the wire, and I failed many times, but I think for the most part, I created a structure that's relatively stable. I think something that would be really helpful as I get deeper into my gardening journey and sort of start to build more and more of these structures in the future, learning some knot techniques. I think if I knew those techniques, this would have been much easier to accomplish. It takes up about half the length of the bed, so it doesn't take up the full length, which was the original goal, but I didn't have enough bamboo canes on hand. Another thing I did as well is I planted seeds for my fall garden. In the beds next to my greenhouse, I have a dedicated bed that I'm going to grow sunflowers in, and I went ahead and planted those out. I've never grown sunflowers from seed before, so I'm curious how that's going to go. I know they're quite vigorous growers, so I don't anticipate much of an issue. I also wanted to grow a couple of additional herbs in my garden, so I went ahead and planted parsley, which I already have a parsley plant that's, I think, going on year 2. And parsley, if I remember correctly, is a biennial, so it's coming to the end of its life. And then in the critter fence where I did the trellis, I did plant a bean variety that's going to hopefully grow up that trellis, as well as some carrots, some radishes, some beets, some spinach, and I think I did a couple of more nasturtiums, which I haven't had the best luck growing nasturtiums in my garden beds. And I did research recently and find out that they actually prefer poor nutrient soil, which feels like it would be counterintuitive. You would think all plants, all growing plants would want the most nutrients as possible, but I guess that's why I do have a nasturtium here in a pot out on my deck that it's just put into any old soil, no compost or anything, and it's thriving. So I guess that explains why that's occurring. So I'm curious to see how those nasturtiums are going to do and if they're truly going to grow or just kind of fizzle out as the other ones I planted in there have. And then in terms of my roses, I have been continuing to spray them with either the Rose RX or the neem oil to prevent little pests from taking them down, and it's been working fairly well. I do spray at the end of the day so that the leaves don't burn, and I feel like I have kept the Japanese beetle population in check, although again I'm afraid to say that because they do end up, I believe, peaking truly in August, so we haven't reached the worst part yet, so I'll see once I get there. Okay, so in terms of what we're gonna do in this video, besides you just hearing me blabber on and chat like this, I'm such a talker, guys. I could talk forever. I feel like I could talk to a wall and probably have a conversation with it. I'm like one of those people, if you ever happen to see me in public, I'm like the girl that will meet someone in a store and end up talking to them for like 4 hours. That's just, I can't help it. So during the last video, I made a basil simple syrup and I mentioned that I wanted to try this out for lemonade. And so I think that's what we're gonna do today, as well as I've been seeing on social media a lot of ice cream recipes, and homemade ice cream is something I've never attempted. So as is pretty much tradition at this point on my channel of trying out new recipes and things I've never done, for the sake of hopefully learning and of course sharing with you guys, I do want to attempt to make some homemade ice cream. I also thought this would be the perfect opportunity to use some of my mint that's growing vigorously right now in containers in my greenhouse. It's doing very well, and using some fresh mint leaves to create some mint chocolate chip ice cream sounds amazing. Mint chocolate chip is one of my all-time classic favorite ice cream flavors. I think it's gonna be the perfect refreshing summer treat, so I can't wait to try that. Now, on the topic of food, I do want to share one more thing with you guys, which was a podcast I listened to the other day from the podcast that I've mentioned, I think once before on this channel, called Grow, Cook, Eat, Arrange by Sarah Raven. And it is a gorgeous podcast talking about all things to do with nature and food and growing flowers. And she just has the best guests and the most interesting topics, and you truly learn a lot. She had the guest Pam Corbin on recently. I don't quite remember when this episode was recorded, but I listened to it a couple of days ago, and Pam came on to talk about making preserves, and I do want to attempt to make a preserve. I don't know if that will be in this video or not, but I have some rhubarb growing. It's not a lot because it's kind of a newer plant. It's about 2 years old now, and so the rhubarb stalks, are they called stalks, I guess, aren't very big yet. But I do want to attempt to make a rhubarb rose preserve in the future. So I was listening to this podcast for information and tips and tricks, and she had a lot of really helpful and interesting tips to share. So I highly recommend, if you guys are interested in doing any kind of jam making this summer, definitely give that episode a listen. Okay guys, that's it for me for today. Let's go ahead and go do a little bit of exploring and creating together. And thank you guys so much, as always, for putting up with my rambling and tuning in and joining me week by week. Again, it means the world to me. And just a note moving forward about my posting schedule, I do think that I am going to pivot my Thursday weekly upload to a Sunday morning weekly upload. I feel like this might be a little bit more convenient for people's schedules. So that's not fully set in stone yet, and it might continue to evolve a little bit more as I'm kind of a newer creator and sort of like learning the needs of my audience. But if you are confused as to why my Thursday videos have disappeared, it's because they're going to be uploaded on Sunday mornings. So just wanted to call that out. I would love to know your thoughts about changing to the Sunday morning upload time. Let me know if you think that that's a little bit better for your schedule or what day would be more preferable for you. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and let's go do a little bit of creating together. I've gathered some supplies. I need to make this basil lemonade, and I only have 3 lemons, and hilariously they are already de-zested, but we just need the juice from them. And I did also grab some agave syrup as well as my basil simple syrup, of course, that we made in the last video together. And I'm not going to make a large batch of this given that I only have 3 lemons. I'm not quite sure how much lemonade that's going to make me, but we're gonna give it a go and just kind of play it by ear. I'm not following any sort of recipe. This is just fully an experiment and me playing around. I do want to show you guys this cute little Highland cow stirrer that I got from Scotland on my trip. How adorable is this? I want to say it was at the site of Lallybroch from the show Outlander, if you're familiar with it. It was one of the castles that we visited called Midhope Castle. And this was just a little souvenir that they had for sale and I couldn't resist it. So I will be using this for our lemonade. Okay, so I'm going to start off by squeezing out as much juice from these lemons as I possibly can into this bowl first. This would be a lot easier if I was using a juicer, but I am just doing this by hand for now. Excuse the splattering on my shirt. I'm definitely getting lemon juice all over myself right now. So funny how you never know how many little cuts and scrapes you have on your hands until you are juicing something like a lemon and you feel it just burn you. All right, so now I'm gonna go separate out the seeds from this lemon juice. Okay, so as you can see, I did downgrade the size of the glass jar that I'm going to use to store the lemonade because we don't have a whole lot of lemon juice from just 3 lemons. And I did run this liquid through a strainer to remove out the seeds. So I'm going to proceed with adding in our lemon juice, our agave syrup, and then our basil simple syrup. And of course, finishing off with some water to dilute it all. When we're done, I'll give it a little taste test and see if I need to adjust and add in any more. All right, and we'll give it a little stir. And now we'll add in our filtered water. Okay, so now I'm gonna give it a little bit of a taste test. Okay, that is way more lemony than what I thought. I thought that the lemon flavor wouldn't come through very much because we didn't have a lot of it, but that is very strong. So I am gonna dilute it just a little bit more with some more water. I'm also not really tasting the basil simple syrup too much, so I am going to add in some more. That lemon is just super overpowering. And the lemon is still too strong. And because we're maxed out on space here, I've brought in a measuring cup to save the day. Okay, so I just did a little bit of additional mixing off camera, but overall from a ratio perspective, it ended up being about 4 cups of water for those 3 lemons. And then I did about 1/4 cup of the basil simple syrup. All right, cheers, let's give it a try. Very refreshing. I love that hint of basil that comes through. It's sort of an unexpected flavor. I think surprisingly, it pairs really well with the lemon. It kind of keeps it a bit grounded and prevents it from being overly tangy and sort of gives it that just interesting kind of more savory kick, which I really like. So I just came out to get this rose, and unfortunately I found a whole bunch of Japanese beetles on it, and you can see some of the petals fell off, which is really sad, but she's still pretty. Okay, so we're back here in my critter fence right now, and please excuse the overgrown grass. I need to both mow and weed whack back here. But here is the finished teepee that I mentioned earlier during our chat. I'm super pleased with how it came out. I'm really excited to see the beans hopefully grow and climb up the structure and see how it does. Looks like I've got a ripe strawberry. Okay guys, I just took you along with me to my greenhouse to gather some fresh mint leaves. I gathered these mint leaves to make some mint chocolate chip ice cream from simplyrecipes.com. As usual, I will make sure I notate the recipe down in the description box below. So for this recipe, we need 3 cups of fresh mint leaves. I'm going to go ahead now and separate the leaves from the stems. Some of these leaves are the chocolate mint variety and the smell is amazing. And I think I've said this before on my channel, but I really do want to encourage anyone out there who maybe isn't a big gardener or who hasn't grown herbs before to give mint a try because it is such an easy herb to grow. It's extremely aggressively growing, which in a garden bed isn't necessarily preferable for everyone, but growing it in a pot keeps it contained and is extremely easy to do. All of last winter, I really forgot to water it and it came back just fine in the spring. So if you're interested in giving it a try, I do highly recommend it. The fragrance it gives walking into my greenhouse is honestly worth it just for that. Of course, from a culinary perspective, there's so many diverse uses for it as well, from sweet things to different savory recipes and teas. Okay, I can already tell that we do not have a full 3 cups, but I'm just gonna roll with what we have. If you've watched my videos before, you'll know that I tend to end up in this situation a lot and often don't follow recipes exactly, and I'm okay with riffing a little bit. So let's go with what we have and see how it turns out. So in general, for the rest of the ingredients, in addition to the 3 cups of mint leaves, which we obviously don't fully have here, we need 1 cup of milk, 2 cups of heavy cream, 2/3 of a cup of sugar, a pinch of salt, 6 large egg yolks, and finally 6 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate. For the first step, we want to infuse the mint flavor into the cream and the milk. So we're going to put the mint leaves in a saucepan with the 1 cup of milk and 1 cup of cream. And we want to make sure that it does not boil, but just gets hot enough to sort of steam. And then we will remove it from the heat and cover it and let it sit for about 30 minutes. And then it says we also want to follow the same process again, reheating it and then removing it from the heat again and letting it stand for another 15 minutes. While our mint leaves are infusing for an additional 15 minutes, we're going to move on to step 2, which says that we want to chill the remaining cream in an ice bath. We've prepared our ice bath, and now for the next step, we are going to strain that mint, milk, and cream mixture that we just heated and infused into this bowl. We're going to take that liquid that we just strained out and return it to the saucepan here and add in our sugar and our salt. And we want to heat it and stir it until that sugar is dissolved. right, for step 4, we're going to whisk the egg yolks. And then we're gonna take our heated milk and cream mixture and incorporate that in with the egg yolks. And then we wanna keep mixing this mixture and then add it back into the saucepan. That's actually pretty funny. The eggs that I have here are all of mixed size, and the recipe specifies to use large egg yolks. So I was worried that I wouldn't have enough yolk, but then I got this egg that has a double yolk. I actually got a second double yolk there as well. Okay, I just realized that I somewhat might have done that incorrectly. I just reread it and it said to slowly pour the mixture in. As you saw, I just completely poured it all in at once, so I don't know how that's going to impact it, but now we're going to return it to the saucepan and we are going to heat it over medium heat, constantly mixing it until it thickens. Okay, I feel like this came out a lot more thick and eggy than was probably intended. Obviously, I made a couple of wrong turns somewhere. Now the recipe is advising to either chill this thoroughly in the refrigerator for at least several hours or mixing it in the bowl like we have here for roughly about 20 minutes until it's thoroughly chilled through. I'm going to attempt to stir it for 20 minutes off camera because I like the instant gratification. Okay, I'm back after the 20 minutes of stirring and the bowl is now sitting in the refrigerator just chilling a tiny bit more while I got all of this set up, but here is my ice cream maker that I'll be leveraging. This is a Cuisinart soft serve ice cream maker. Technically, we're not trying to make soft serve ice cream, but this is the only ice cream maker that I own. And I also have off to the side here my semi-sweet chocolate chips prepared to add in. I did go ahead and grind these up a bit in the food processor first. Okay, here's the finished ice cream. I'm gonna be totally honest with you guys and share with you that I had major struggles using the ice cream maker. I don't know if the issue is on my end or the machine end, but I could not stop getting it to make this loud grinding sound the entire time. And this is day 2 of trying to get it to work. I attempted it all day yesterday and failed, so I attempted it again today. And we got a finished product, but this is a lot more whipped in consistency than I was hoping for. And I guess that makes sense because it is a soft serve ice cream maker. So if you guys have any recommendations below for traditional ice cream makers that you really like, please let me know. I will say flavor-wise, the recipe is spot on. It's very minty and delicious. So I do highly recommend this recipe if you are like me and you enjoy mint chocolate chip ice cream.